From the Watergate Building in Washington, this is Hotline TV. Now here are Hotline editors Chuck Todd and John Mercurio.
Well, look who's here. John's back, and I'm here, and we've actually got both of us in the same place at the same time. Hello, everybody. I'm Chuck Todd.
And it feels really good. I'm John Mercurio. Welcome to Hotline TV. Don't touch me. We start today with a look back at the week in elections, and yes, there were two. Let's start in the final Democratic pickup of the year, Texas 23, where voters sent Republican Congressman Henry Bonilla packing. All right, Chuck, Democrats finished the year with a bang.
Boy, DCCC did with a bang because, you know,
$1.5 million.
Cyril Rodriguez had about $3 to his name. Didn't even want to do this race. Remember, he got in, then got out, then sort of got dragged into this thing. He barely ran a campaign, didn't run much of a campaign. Bonilla didn't crack 50, and I guess that's where we should have been a little more questioning Bonilla, because Cyril didn't run a campaign, and Bonilla couldn't get 50, and we probably should have been a little more doubtful of Bonilla's chances. We made a tiny mistake there. But man, D-Trip just kicked the NRCC's tail.
D-Trip having foresight. I think Republicans sort of in a scramble after November 7th,
well,
not really up for this race.
Forget,
but also not
thinking
Bonilla supposedly has had tough races before. He survived them sometimes by wide margins. So I don't think a lot of Republicans were expecting not just a victory by Democrats, but a pretty substantial one.
This was literally, it's as if the NRCC and the DCCC switched spots. This is the type of thing the NRCC used to clean up in these leagues, sort of post-election races, these early quickie specials. And they would steal races all the time over the last 12 years. And this time, I think part of this is
but it wasn't just tactical. It wasn't just tactical. It was also issues. It was also issues. There was definitely immigration reform. There were definitely a lot of Hispanic voters in key counties who were opposed to Bonilla on the border fence issue.
That was the one issue. And
if there's any border, if there's any issue that this issue, if there's any district that this issue is going to play in, it's the border district.
And Bonilla, I mean, you know, there's that one county that literally just flipped upside down between Maverick County, between Bonilla and Rodriguez. Look, you do have to start. Do we need to start wondering about Texas? I mean, is the Republican stranglehold on Texas starting to just ever so slightly erode? I mean, Rick Perry only got 38%.
Right.
You know, suddenly Bonilla. This was designed to be a swing district.
This
was not designed to be a Democratic district. It was a swing district.
Rick Perry didn't just only get 38%, but he got 38% to three candidates who, you know, arguably were to the left of him.
All ran to his left.
Yeah.
That's right.
So these are that. So that's I think that 62%.
You know, the Perry people will tell you, well,
right.
They went ahead and they ran a campaign to win 38. They didn't try to win. They knew that in a four-way that's all they needed, so they were only going to do what they needed. Still.
But governing
it is
as
a minority-majority state, and someday that minority is going to bite the Republicans.
And governing as a 38% governor is a lot. It's difficult, especially on a political level.
Let's go to another surprise last weekend. Congressman Bill Jefferson, dollar bill, actually $90,000 bill, kept his seat. John, how did he keep his seat when indictment seems to loom over his head every day?
I was in New Orleans last weekend. I was there the night of his election. There was nothing but surprise, at least in the small house party that I was attending at my brother's house. Very fun party. You all should come next year. And there was nothing but shock. I mean, there was nothing but shock among people that I talked to around New Orleans, which clearly shows that I was operating in a very small pocket of New Orleans because he won substantially.
This is a case where all politics was local. Though this is right. I mean, this is a case where Karen Carter.
I don't think so. I think a lot of people.
She pissed off Harry
Lee, the sheriff of Jefferson Parish, who she had criticized in Spike Lee's movie for having shot at a lot of these people who were trying to evacuate from New Orleans, who were trying to cross the bridge to come into Jefferson County. He didn't want them in his county.
She sort of played. It was weird.
Harry Lee is a very, very charismatic, influential politician.
One trend that stayed is that in these minority-majority districts of these African American, these Dem versus Dem sort of primaries of sorts, and this kind of was still a Dem versus Dem primary, Carter and Jefferson. We saw it with Cynthia McKinney and Hank Johnson. We saw it with Earl Hilliard and Arthur Davis a few years ago. The white vote was the swing vote.
Right.
And once again, the white vote was the swing vote.
And Jefferson played to white voters, to white conservative Republicans, by highlighting the fact that Karen Carter supports gay marriage, supports partial birth abortion. But it wasn't just local issues. It was those national issues. And it was also the fact that people, if I could just continue speaking.
You need
Can I continue speaking?
You need the practice. So
that the federal nobody doesn't know about the fact that Jefferson's under federal investigation. Everybody acknowledges it, but the fact is, a lot of voters, I think, were responding to that investigation by saying, we don't believe you. We think the federal government right now has such low credibility, has become such a political weapon of the Republican administration. Let me finish my sentence. That you just relax for a second.
Please.
I know Chuck Todd needs his airtime, but if you could just let me finish my sentence.
Sorry.
You ready?
Yeah.
I forgot my thought.
Thank God.
And the last thing they were saying, they were trying to rebuke
they
were trying to rebuke shut up, Hannity. They were trying to rebuke the administration, and that's the last thing this city really needs to be doing right now, is rebuking the federal government at a time when they need federal aid more than any other.
The irony is, when I look at you, I do see Alan Combs. One, two. How many press releases from the NRCC that?
Are you still talking about this race?
We'll start with Bill Jefferson between now and the next 6 months.
I don't know how many.
I'm asking you.
4.
No, they will do this once a week. They will do. But the Democrats have corrupted Bill Jefferson.
Nancy Pelosi, to her credit, has done everything she can to try to minimize any sort of damage. She's on the Small Business Committee. Who's even heard of the Small Business Committee?
All right, so hopefully we can do
Small Business Committee.
More. I know everybody wants
no
more
offense,
on Bill
Nidia
Jefferson.
Velasquez.
All right, we promise this show's not only going to be about Bill Jefferson. He made his comeback.
He did.
And we're never going to talk about him again. Bonilla's probably contemplating his own comeback. Let's rank some of the big-name politicians. They fell this year.
You don't want to say politicos?
No, I don't think. No.
You don't like the word politico?
I don't like the word politico. Big-name Pauls this year fell. Some of them are going to make comebacks. We're going to rank the likelihood that they will succeed in that comeback.
Intéressant, as they say in Paris.
Interessante, as they say in Havana.
Oh.
Even
all right.
the losers
I'm putting
get
this.
lucky sometimes.
I'm putting this one pretty far down here.
Tom DeLay.
Yeah, I'm actually.
Why don't you hold it up for the viewers so they can see what you're talking about?
I didn't realize we had viewers.
Yeah.
There you go. Tom DeLay, former House Majority Leader, a.k.a. the hammer belongs right at the bottom. Let's be honest. He's toast, and not just because of the polarizing figure that he was when he served in the House, not just because of the ethical cloud he left under. Look, the redistricting, the redistricting map he came up with has pissed off Republicans in Texas. It ends up being pretty much a wash. He's now a blogger, and we all know,
bloggers don't go anywhere.
Bloggers don't go
anywhere.
They never make comebacks.
I guess next on this list, I'm going to go. I would put Jeb Bradley in the 4th spot here. You lose to literally loony left type of campaign with Carol Shea Porter.
Hey, now
she ran way
left. She's a friend of the show.
I'm sure she is. He gets swept out. First name's Jeb. What more can you say? I think. I just
you don't think Jebs have a future in politics?
I don't think Jebs have futures in politics in 2008, so I'm anti-Jeb.
I was going to say Richard Simmons when I first saw this, but I realized we're not talking about Richard Simmons making a comeback because that man is always on top. Mm-hmm. Rob Simmons, I think, has a pretty substantial chance of making a comeback.
You put him in your top 5.
I'm pretty high up. I think it's a competitive district. He could always.
I think he could come back and
pretty
win
well.
it, particularly if Courtney makes a mistake.
Right.
And there's no question. And he barely lost. Next on our list is Jim Leach, and I actually think Leach is done with politics, so we probably ought to put him just above DeLay. Sure. I think if he wanted to come back,
right,
he would be taken seriously and all this stuff. But
UN ambassador, but that's not going to happen either.
He's not running for office again. I think Jim Leach wants to be president of the University of Iowa.
I think that Jim Leach has a future in academia.
Yeah. And then finally, we got probably in the second.
It all depends what happens in other races.
What about George Allen?
By comeback, if you mean running for another Senate seat, I think it all depends on what happens with Warner.
He can run for Senate.
I think if Warner does retire, I bet you anything he at least considers a race. What happens for governor is the other thing.
I think the guy didn't like the Senate. Remember?
Oh, he was too bored.
Yeah.
Yes,
so I can't imagine that. He was only running for re-election to run for president. Why would you suddenly say, "Oh, I want to be a senator again"? Because I can't wait to serve with Jim Webb.
Especially
I want to be the junior senator to Jim Webb.
Especially if you'd be in a primary against Tom Davis.
I got to think I think he might want to run for office again, and I assume it's governor.
I wouldn't put him that high. I don't want to rearrange all these things, but I would put him farther down here, somewhere maybe above Tom DeLay.
And for some reason we have loser Dems.
Because it sounds good.
It does sound
loser Dems.
And they're probably above Tom DeLay.
Who were loser Dems? Who were the loser Dems this year?
Diane Farrell.
Oh, okay, sure.
Lois Murphy. I guess if you couldn't win now, Mike
Diane
Hatch.
Farrell's now a 2-time loser. Lois Murphy a 2-time loser.
Mike Hatch down, and he loses every statewide office known to man in Minnesota.
I'm putting
I guess
pretty
the point
far.
is
if you can't win in 2006, you're probably not suited to run. And I think There
I'll give
are
you
a
one that might
few.
come back. Christine Jennings.
Christine Jennings, I was just going to say.
There's a possibility.
Yeah, I would put Christine Jennings. Although, you know, losers, people who lose, exactly, and push the recount thing have a very, very hard history.
Too hard. All right,
Bad
so there's your list.
All right, some people were struck by our headline after Illinois Senator Barack Obama traveled to Iowa. We call the story, quote, "For unto us a child is born." It's a Christmas theme. We thought the nativity comparison fit perfectly with the kind of press Obama got on his trip to the Granite State. But as Howard Dean peaked 4 months before the caucuses, could Obama peak too soon? A big question, so let's break out our new Obameter with apologies to my friend Tucker Carlson and Chuck. Here's Obama's head.
Today's Obameter. I think it may become a fairly regular feature.
Pardon the Velcro.
Yeah, the different things. What's interesting is,
very, very expensive and elaborate graphics.
They were passing out all this water, all this bottled water, and all of a sudden it turned into wine after Obama spoke.
Did he walk on the water after people laid the water out there?
So let's see. Where is the Obama this week? Dem notable back to Illinois Senate.
Now this is just, of course, a read on where things stand in his current media treatment, not necessarily where we think.
I'm going to put him somewhere in between back to the Senate and Dem notable. I think he's not quite ready. He's not quite the front runner, so you can't put him. But he's a contender.
Dem notable.
Yeah. Would you put him up any higher?
I'm going to put him slightly higher just to be cantankerous, which I love to be, as you know, Chuck Todd.
Absolutely.
I'm putting him slightly higher. I think the ESPN, and you know we love ESPN, that ESPN video was fantastic. I thought it was for field hockey.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, that field hockey thing that he did was hysterical. I talked to a friend of mine in DuPage County, Republican. Hates Barack Obama. He was watching it with his dad. They both voted for Peter Roskam. They both voted for Judy Bartopinka. They saw that and they loved it. And they said, you know, he's not that bad of a guy. It was very well done, and it was all personal charisma that helped him through.
Do we think Gibbs wrote it, or do you think Obama wrote it? Let's give Gibbs the credit.
I have no idea.
We'll give Gibbs the credit. Finally today, Democrats have gotten lucky in Kentucky.
That's my line.
The incumbent Republican governor is so unpopular. How unpopular is he? He's almost been indicted, and his own campaign treasurer from 4 years ago is running against him.
Oh, that's got to hurt.
But it's not so easy because no big-time Democrat has even filed.
Why not?
Are Democrats going to blow this chance? I mean, here's the second most unpopular governor in the country, right? Number one is Taft, just to the north.
Right. Who's not running again. Who has no
Fletcher has had to pardon everybody that worked for him so that they wouldn't go to prison.
And he's running for re-election. As we just talked about, he's got
even though Mitch McConnell has basically said, please don't run.
But if Mitch McConnell is supposed to be the boss of the Republican Party in Kentucky, why can't he find someone to run against him? Why can't Mitch McConnell has an excellent relationship with Ann Northup, and he cannot get her to run for this.
I think
they could lose
fear
this.
of not winning the primary at the end of the day. That's the greater fear
for
that you
her.
play.
She thinks she's got a future in the party, and so
if you play, look, primary politics is a whole different ball. If you could guarantee Ann Northup the nomination, I think Mitch McConnell would do that swap in a heartbeat. But if Fletcher ain't going anywhere, I think he worries that, particularly in a crowded three-way, this millionaire guy Harper's going to stay in.
Right.
You throw in Northup,
Ben Chandler decides not to run, so Fletcher actually ends up looking more and more viable.
He suddenly looks viable. I look. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They could nominate you, and I think you're going to be governor of Kentucky.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. You know, it has
always been. They need a candidate.
It has always been a lifelong dream.
They may have a Jewish governor of Kentucky. I mean,
what's wrong with that? What is your problem with Jewish people, Chuck Todd? Answer that right now.
People. I'm no Jimmy Carter.
Okay.
Okay. I'm no Jimmy Carter. I love the Jewish people, as I am a member of the tribe. But I don't think I could get elected governor of Kentucky.
You should try. I think Chuck. I think you'd be a great governor.
I would love.
I honestly do.
As long as if I could.
I've always said that.
Sing my old Kentucky home. I just want to be governor for a day, so I could have the governor's box at the Kentucky Derby. Now that would be cool.
Governor's box. All right. There's a lot of
Finally,
ways to make that dirty. There's the 2-minute warning. Let me read my lines, and you can read yours. Let's get out of here and make our own comeback on respectable television. Chuck, Bill Frist this week decried what he called increasing rancor and a lack of civility in Washington. I'm sorry, that was my Joe Lieberman.
Sorry.
This from the same guy who broke tradition to help beat Tom Daschle 2 years ago. Imagine the indignity. Frist is out as majority leader, so what was your favorite moment of the Bill Frist era?
Has to be the videotape diagnosis.
Indeed.
I mean, always will be known for that. That and the gorilla surgery. gorilla testosterone.
Well, that provided the best photo
Yes,
opportunity,
it
I
did.
think, please.
The smell of gorilla testosterone on his surgical hand.
Just smell it now.
Because we don't have enough to make fun of, as it is, Dennis Kucinich this week announced his second run for the White House. In his speech, he said he wanted to, quote, end this march of folly, unquote. Dare I guess what he was talking about, Mr. Mercurio?
Yeah, I know. It sort of gives new meaning to the word stay the course. Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney, in her final public spit in Sanity's face, introduced a bill to impeach President Bush last week. That would be a bill. That would be a piece of legislation. That would be Cynthia McKinney going out with a bang.
That's more like it. I would love to see that.
Go, Cindy. Now, Chuck, who's co-sponsoring this one?
I'll just say this. Remember, we all laughed at Bob Barr when he introduced impeachment legislation on Bill Clinton.
Sure.
And look where that got us. Donald Rumsfeld says he skimmed the Iraq study group.
I almost want to talk about that, but anyway, go ahead.
You think he's put any effort into his job at all lately, or is he just phoning it in while they literally paint the walls Aggie colors?
I think he's doing a heck of a job.
Heck of a job.
Heck of a job.
Let's get ready to Rumsfeld.
Finally, a Texas state representative has introduced, sorry, I'm a little bit slurry here today, has introduced a bill to allow the blind to hunt. I think that bill's actually passed. Chuck, can you possibly envision what this might lead to?
I'm so glad you used the word envision. We're talking about blind hunters.
Yes, because I'm blind.
What's funny is that I think that we've already had a blind hunter. It's called Vice President of the United States. There's the buzzer, and that'll do it for another episode of Hotline TV. Join us next week when we're looking at the best of the year all week long.
You can also check us out at HotlineTV.net or subscribe to our shows on iTunes and YouTube. If you don't, we'll go on vacation again, we swear.
And I will always be swearing. I'm Chuck Todd. Have a good weekend.
I'm John Mercurio. We'll see you Monday on Hotline TV.